happen to people who are not in themselves terrible. We have to look past that. This cannot be an excuse why we don't follow Jesus. This cannot be an excuse why we turn our back on God. My mother has spent most of her life turning her back on God because she was bereaved of her father when she was 15 years old. I adore and love my mother. She is one of the most loving people you could ever meet. But she has carried this excuse like a shield throughout her entire life, so that a whole load of things never have to be examined or looked at. So no transformation needs to be done at that deepest and profoundest spiritual level, because you have a shield. Oh, my father died. A loving God wouldn't do that to me. A loving God did do that, but not to her. We do not have to see death and bereavement as some sort of punishment, for goodness sakes.
That's right.
The trouble is, Christians don't believe their own propaganda. Christians spend all their time saying about how wonderful the afterlife is and how joyful it will be to be reunited with God after our death. And we should mean it, and we frequently do mean it, but we still act as if death is some horrible punishment meted out to us, and not some blessed deliverance, which indeed it is.
Come on.
At the end of this service, we will be singing a cappella, because Russ is sick, alas. He did bravely struggle but had to leave again. We will be singing I'll Fly Away, an old Baptist hymn, I'll Fly Away. Some people complain about its sentimentality, but we actually need to bind all that stuff into our hearts, because that is the destination of the journey.
That's right. Yes, sir.
We are embarking upon a journey, not because of the destination, but because our traveling companion is the right person to travel with.
Amen.
Amen.
Now, when we say we follow somebody, what do we mean? Do we mean that we get a kick out of being next to them? That's not really following somebody. That's using them like some sort of resource. You know, there's an expression, a roue, which is somebody who sees everybody as just a potential sexual partner. They don't see human beings, they just see a potential sexual partner. Well, many people are roues when it comes down to their spirituality. They see everything as a means to an end. What can it do for me? What can it give me? What can it do for my business? What can it do for my job? What can it do for my bank balance? Amen?
Come on.
That is a roue. That is prostituting Jesus and God to your own ends.
Come on now.
We need to understand that no matter what happens to us, no matter how destitute we get, and I have to say this again, this story that I tell almost every week, you can live under the I-10 and have a victorious, triumphant spiritual life.
Amen.
And I'll tell you what, 250 years down the road, that's all that will matter.
That's right.
How many of us are ever going to be rich enough to be remembered 250 years down the road? All that we gather will be dust and ashes very shortly after we are. If we really believe in the concept of eternity and an eternal God, and I do not have to stand up here and say exactly what that is. I believe that the only way to approach that concept of the eternal God is mysticism, which acknowledges that we are frequently ignorant as to who that Creator God really is, that God exists in this cloud of unknowing. So I'm not standing here to tell you exactly what to believe, but I'm standing here and saying we believe together. All those sundry different things which we believe, which we can never truly know. No matter how many formulas I ask you to trot out, you will never truly know exactly what your neighbor believes. That way lies madness. You have to trust in God and trust in each individual's ability to say yes to a journey which will lead them following Christ and following God.
Amen.
Elizabeth I said, I will not make a window into men's souls. Well, we don't have that option. We can't make a window into each other's souls. For all I know, I suspect it's not the case, Leon may believe that the world resides upon a gigantic crab, and every morning the sun is vomited out by that crab and swallowed again at the end. I don't know. We have to treat each other in the same way as we treat God, with faith. We are not going to be vouchsafed to have certainty. We are in the position of somebody who is following an invisible guide. At best we have footsteps. At best we have marks in the sand. At best, we have whispered words from that guide. Occasionally, a hand slipped into ours. But what we do not have is the cast iron certainty that each and every one of us seems to need in every other part of our lives. And that is liberating, because we don't have to have all the answers anymore. We do not have to give an account of ourselves or our faith to anybody else. We don't have to give an account of what we believe to anybody. We don't have to give an account of how we believe it to anybody. We don't have to apologize for ourselves to any other person. This is something that goes on an intimate basis between us and God, in groanings too deep for human understanding. Frequently, we ourselves don't understand the language with which we communicate with God. How then is anybody else going to understand that self-same language? How is anyone ever going to tell me that my faith is in some way invalid? They have no idea. No idea at all. Bartimaeus didn't say, give me some money. Bartimaeus didn't even call out, give me my sight back. Bartimaeus called out, have mercy on me. This gives the power and gives the wisdom to Jesus. It says, like a small baby crying in a crib, I need. It doesn't say what I need, it just says, I need. And this is the position of many of us. We must not be ashamed to come to God like a small child, a tiny infant that frequently communicates in a language which is little more than screaming and crying and wailing and mourning. All it says to the mother is, I need. And the loving mother discerns what the need of the child is. The loving mother gathers the child up into her bosom and feeds the child, cleans the child, tends it, puts it, and surrounds it in softness. Our loving mother, God, our beloved Jesus Christ, discerns our need. All we are called to do is say, I need, and turn ourselves to that same God. We don't have to give an account of ourselves anymore. We are not in that great divine courtroom divided between prosecuting and defending attorneys. We are not being judged by anybody else on earth. Not by me, not by your neighbours, not by anybody else who may visit here, not by anyone else in the city, not by your family, not by remembrance of anybody, because sometimes we are judged horribly by memories. I have, at times in my head, a chorus of people from my past disapproving of my actions. When we first state to ourselves and to God that we are going to take part in this journey, that we are going to become followers of Jesus, everything else is swept away. All we have to concentrate on is looking upon ourselves that we are sincere in our decision, and then we sincerely follow that same Jesus Christ, accepting from the beginning that horrifying mistakes will be made, that we will frequently be made to look foolish, and that we will do and say things which will bring us into disrepute. As we go forward from here, I would like you to bear in mind that there is a whole spectrum of commitment to God and to Christ. It doesn't mean that one is necessarily better than the other. It does mean that our life here on earth is all about discerning what form our commitment is going to take. And before I finish this sermon, I want to call some people out. Not to come to the front, but to stand up. Because the real sign as to whether a church is a living place, a living entity, is whether people feel motivated to commit their lives